Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. This is the 26th part of What If Deku Had a Robot Wolf. I hope you enjoy. Link to the original story and author in the description. Chapter 26, Gearshift. Izumi stood there shivering in fear. If she had a mouth she would have been shrinking as well, or screaming. She knew who the man before her was, one of the previous users of One for All, but he was dead, long dead. How the hell could she be talking to a ghost within a quirk? The man before her continued to look at her with judgmental eyes, as if her mere presence was annoying him. Before letting out a tired sigh, yes, I am talking to you. Since One for All has grown since you received it, it hit what you would call singularity. I wouldn't say I am the best at explaining this, but, apart from Yoichi, I'm among the oldest here. So I'm probably one of the few who know the most about this quirk. US? Izumi thought. She would have been a bit more confused about this, but then she remembered that she was talking to one of the previous uses of One for All. Us must be referring to the other previous users. But who was Yoichi? Yoichi Shigaraki, the first user of One for All and the man who passed the meta ability, or quirk as you would call it, onto me, the man before her said, surprising Izumi. He's in here as well as all the other past users. Well, apart from Toshinori, he's sort of in here, but he's not fully formed. He explained. One for All wasn't just stockpiling strength over the years, but the quirks and memories of all the previous users as well. This dash, he said, pointing at himself, isn't me, just a memory, a vestige, a remnant of myself and my quirk. The real me died over 150 years ago fighting All for One. And yes, we can hear your thoughts. It's easier to communicate with you this way. Don't worry, we're not always listening in, so your private thoughts and moments are still private. Well, that was good-ish. At least they weren't spying on her 24/7 and were giving her some privacy. It was also interesting and explained a few things that had confused her. Wait, that means the voices she'd been hearing from time to time were dash. From us, the man before her said. Yeah, you've been hearing us comment on things going on from time to time. Not that there's much else for us to do in here. Not that you've been hearing all of our remarks. Just a few from time to time. Anyway, you may have noticed something happened to you during the sports festival. You move forwards at great speed, far faster than you did when using One for All at full power. That was my meta ability you used, Gearshift. I used your quirk, Izumi thought. She used a past user's quirk? Well, that threw almost everything she knew about One for All out the window. Plus the fact he called his quirk meta ability told her that he was very old. Probably from the dawn of quirks. Which means she just used a very old quirk. I did say that One for All stored the quirks of its previous users, the man said. Gearshift allowed me to change the speed of things, making them accelerate faster, even ignoring the laws of inertia. I should probably mention that back in my day, Gearshift wasn't all that powerful. Back then I was only capable of using it on small objects, shooting them faster than a bullet. Which I used in conjunction with my gauntlets, he said, pointing at his gauntlets, but, as you can see, after being marinated within One for All for over 150 years, it's gotten much stronger. I don't even think it'll be safe for you to use it the same way I did. It's far too strong now. As you can probably tell, it now takes quite a toll on you. You'll only have 5 minutes to finish whatever fight you're in upon using Gearshift before the strain of using it takes you out. So, leave it as a last resort for now. Izumi raised her arm and gave him a thumbs up. She probably wasn't going to use Gearshift again during the sports festival anyway. It's new, untested, and by the sounds of it, dangerous to use. Hopefully, the other quirks stored within One for All aren't as equally dangerous. Still, she was rather annoyed that she just got her hands on a brand new ability, and she couldn't use it unless it was a last resort. Wait, it's called Gearshift, referencing a car's gearbox, and can speed things up. Does that mean it has a neutral and reverse gear as well? She thought casually. The man before her looked at her with a confused look on his face, before looking at his hands. Why the fuck didn't I ever think of that? He shouted. I'd test this out, but I'm kind of dead at the moment. But still, something like that should have been fucking obvious. Izumi's sweat dropped. Did she just accidentally cause a ghost to have an existential crisis? Because it feels like she just did. Suddenly, black smoke started to rise up the man's body. Looks like my time with you is up, he said, before narrowing his eyes. I'll tell you this now. I don't think you're a suitable successor for One for All. You're too naive and optimistic. But, I am willing to give you the benefit of the doubt, he said as the smoke continued to rise. Remember, you're not alone anymore, he said just as the smoke completely covered him, and the black void around them disappeared. Izumi had mixed feelings about this encounter. She was excited about having a new quirk to use, even if it was dangerous to use. But also worried, the man who talked to her, who didn't tell her his name, clearly didn't like her. The way he spoke and some of the things he said didn't sound like someone who was happy with Toshinori's choice of successor. But, if he didn't like her, then why did he look so sad when he left? She didn't have time to think about it long, because before she knew it, she found herself laying on the ground, her vision blurry, her head hurting like hell, and someone, probably Achiko, shouting her name. Yep, she should have seen this coming. When her vision and hearing returned to normal, she found Achiko, Tsuyu, Himiko, Momo, Hitoshi, Nato, Mei, and Durandal crowded around her. Achiko was shouting her name, so she tried to get her to quieten down by raising her hand and slapping it against her face. Well, I'll take that as a I'm okay then, Nito said with a smile. You okay, Izumi? Hitoshi asked, just quietly enough to be comfortable for her. Yeah, I'm fine, Izumi said as she sat up before grabbing her head. So this must be the kickback he mentioned, she thought. Yeah, now she had a good reason to not use gearshift. What happened? Tsuyu asked. You just shot forwards like you were just fired out of a cannon, Ribbit. I think I was, Izumi replied. I just figured out a new technique for my quirk. A new technique? Achiko asked, sounding confused. Yeah. I think I've been wrong about my quirk, Izumi said, having to come up with a quick lie to explain her newfound ability. I thought I was stockpiling strength, but I'm not, it's something else. But I'm not sure yet. I'm going to have to ask Blossom about it. But, I think I'm stockpiling energy instead of strength. Ah, I see, and now you've found a new way to use that energy, Nito said. Izumi nodded her head. Yeah, I enhanced my speed. But I think I should avoid using it again during the festival, just to be on the safe side. I have no idea what I can do with this new ability, and I don't want to find out outside of a controlled environment. Yeah, that's probably a good idea, Momo said. You have no idea what this new aspect of your quirk can do. So, better safe than sorry. Izumi nodded before she tried to stand up, only to fall back onto the ground. Fuck, that must have taken a lot more out of me than I thought, she panted. May passed her a bottle. Here, drink this. Izumi took the bottle and drank it. Thanks, May, she said before she suddenly shot to her feet and started vibrating, much to everyone but May's surprise. My what isn't this stuff? I feel great. What was that beverage made of? Momo asked, sounding rather concerned. It's a super energizing drink of my own design. May replied, keeps you up for hours. I have it all the time. Well, now we know why she's so hyperactive all the time, Achiko said with a sigh. Izumi tried to speak, but what came out was a long breathless stream of words that made zero sense to everyone, including Izumi. Will she be fine? Nito asked as Izumi went on a high-speed mutter storm. Yep. May replied with a smile, although it might take a while for her to calm down. Tsuyu sighed. Well, at least she's okay, Ribbit, she said. Come on, let's get her over to the others, she said before Momo and Achiko guided Izumi back towards the main group, the green-haired girl still muttering like mad. Meanwhile, in the 1A dorm, Inko Midoriya was currently crying her eyes out. Out of both worry and happiness. Worry because her daughter had collapsed at the end of the race, but happiness because she was able to get first place. But, even though she was doing well, she couldn't help but worry about Izumi. She was her only child. Yes, she was looking after Eri, but she was hired by UA to do that. She's not officially her daughter, yet. But she was thinking about it. She couldn't bear to see Izumi get hurt, even if it was something she sadly would have to get used to when she becomes a hero. But, no matter what, she was going to support her daughter, the best she can. Her three younger companions, on the other hand, were all huddled underneath an umbrella Eri had gotten so that they didn't get wet from the Midoriya waterworks. Is this normal? Kimoto asked. I believe so, Eri replied. I'd say we should get a plumber, Teshima remarked, but I don't think they could fix that. I thought her quirk was attraction of small objects. Not uncontrolled crying, Kimoto remarked. I think it's just a mutation, not a quirk, Eri said, but I do think that she might need to be rehydrated at some point, she said before she got up and made her way over to the kitchen to get a jug of water. As she went off to get some water, she thought back to the sports festival. She was worried about Izumi. She just used an ability that wasn't her quirk, but someone else's. She could tell. She knew a few things about her big sister's quirk. That it wasn't hers and was given to her by All Might, that it had voices of its own. She couldn't help it, the voices told her. Even with that chant the friendly voice had taught her, she was still struggling to control her curse. She couldn't help but pick up what the voices say, a reaction grown out of fear of who was going to hurt her next. But none of the voices here was harmful or showed resentment towards her. They were kind, caring, and worried. A whole mix of emotions felt normal. A big difference from what she was used to. She had yet to tell Izumi about this, as she was scared about how she would react to this information. She couldn't help it, she couldn't control what the voices told her. But she knew that she had to tell her at some point. Maybe she should ask the helpful voice about it later. She would know what to do. Meanwhile, back at the stadium, Hisashi was smiling brightly. It was only the first event and already Izumi had made him proud. She got first place, and in quite an impressive way too. Yes, collapsing at the end worried him greatly, but she had friends down there looking after her, so she was in good hands. His baby girl was performing so well, and he was proud that she was on her way to achieving her goal of becoming a hero. Even if the quirk was given to her by the #1 hero. But that didn't matter to him. Even if she was doing this quirkless, he would still be proud of her. Hisashi wasn't the only one who was proud of Izumi, Toshinori was proud of her as well. Yes, her collapse at the end there worried him, but she looked to be fine now. He couldn't be more proud of his successor's progress. Still, that super speed move she just pulled off was odd. He remembered moving at speeds like that before, but never exactly like that. Was it something new? She did say One for All was acting odd. Maybe he could ask her about it later. But, for now, he was content to sit and watch his successor. Elsewhere in the stadium, Mirko was watching Yusako with a grin. No, she wasn't thinking of sending the girl an internship request, but that didn't mean she wasn't interested in the girl. She was clearly strong and capable of great speed. Yes, she did collapse at the end of the race, but Mirko, and most of the heroes present, could easily tell what had happened. Yusako had just used her quirk in a new way and was unprepared for it, especially since she looked just as surprised by it as everyone else was. It happens from time to time, people find out new aspects of their quirk at inconvenient times, such as right now. What interested Mirko the most was the snarl on Yusako's face. That got a smirk out of the rabbit hero. Clearly, there was a beast hidden underneath that cute exterior, one she hides well save for rather intense moments. But she could tell that Yusako's beast was feral, untamed, and dangerous. If she wants to make the most of it, she is going to have to tame it. She was slightly disappointed that Yusako had worked together with the rest of her class, but, considering who the class in question was, she could understand why, for the majority of the race, they were working together. Eraserhead said it best, one already knows the value of teamwork and was putting it to good use. Mirko wasn't an idiot, strong yes, but not an idiot. She may act like a rabid berserker when fighting, but she's not hitting her foes at random. Each strike she makes is well thought out, and she doesn't hit with all her power, only enough to knock someone out, not kill. But even she knew that fighting an army of Avalon robots alone, even if it was a small squad of them, without backup from preferably the army, was suicide. She was still training to become a hero back then, but she kept tabs on the war, especially during the brief invasion of Japan. Yes, it was beaten back, but 1/4 of Japan's heroes were either killed or forced to retire. Avalon's robots were deadly, especially when heroes tried to take on a large number of them by themselves with no backup. And she's a professional hero, the students of 1A had only been training to become heroes for less than a week. It was a miracle that none of them had died during the attack. And whilst information about what happened at the USJ was mixed at best due to there being minors on site, all the reports she read said that all but one of the robots took several students working together to take down. If that's the case, who took down the one robot all by themselves? She thought, All Might couldn't have destroyed it, so it had to have been one of the students. Unfortunately, she didn't know who, but she was going to have a fun time finding out. It wasn't just the people at the stadium or on UA grounds who were watching the UA Sports Festival. It was a televised event, so there were people all over Japan and the world watching the event. In a secluded bar somewhere in Japan, Tamura and Kurajiri were busy watching the sports festival. Well, Tamura was anyway, Kurajiri was busy tending to his bar, not that there were any customers to serve. This is boring, Tamura said, sounding rather bored. He would have preferred to have been playing his video games now, not watching some brats. At least there was one upside to this event. He could see the quirks of the young brats who survived the USJ. Do not worry, Tamura, the voice of Sensei said reassuringly. It'll get more interesting soon, just you wait. Besides, we are gathering useful information on them that may prove useful in the future. I've seen quite a few useful quirks among the students, the voice of the doctor added, if only we could get a hand on some of them. We could make some very dangerous Nomu with them. Oh, by the way, how's the finger doing? Good as new, even if I have a debuff now, Tamura replied, looking at the finger that had been shot off by Snipe. Man, he was so cool, he'd be even cooler if he hadn't shot him full of bullets. But, even though he now had a 1 in 4 chance of his quirk failing in that hand, he could still use it. Plus his other hand was unaffected, so, where's the other guy? He's busy preparing our next high-end Nomu, the doctor replied. Will it be better than the one we used at the USJ? Tamura asked, sounding unconvinced. Oh, it will be far superior, the doctor said, but it will take longer to make. Lanky is going to be rather different from most Nomu. I can safely say that All Might will enjoy meeting him. Well, that's good to hear, Tamura said with a smirk. I'm going to enjoy knocking him off of his pillar of peace. I'm sure you will, Sensei said, but for now, rest, and watch our enemies foolishly display their capabilities. Yes, Sensei, Tamura said, speaking of the festival. Why didn't we launch the USJ attack until after the festival? We would have had much more information on who was there. The end result probably would have been the same, just with the added downside of much more competent hero course students. Sensei replied, attacking early had the added benefit of the students not having much training. Plus they wouldn't have had much combat training with their quirks. Sadly, we weren't the only ones there. I fear we may have had a traitor within our midst. The timing was too perfect. So we were going to have the griefer show up no matter when we did it, Tamura said, sounding annoyed. Great, this must be what we get for gathering up a random mix of low-level grunts. You're never sure of where their true loyalties lie. Don't look at me, I didn't exactly leave Avalon on good terms with Paxton. The third voice said, I highly doubt that I would be able to notice anyone who was working with Avalon. Probably a good thing that I didn't show my face, otherwise this Avalon remnant would know I am working for the League. And we don't want that. Shouldn't you be preparing the subject for mummification? The doctor asked. I am, but I'm going to try and talk to him first, the third voice replied. We might be able to get something useful out of him. We can't interrogate him after he's been turned into a Nomu, all the information we need will be lost during the process. He is correct, Sensei said, the mummification process will effectively kill him, so we must gather what information we can from him. It may prove useful. But we can handle that. Like I said, rest, and watch our enemies display their abilities to us willingly. As you wish, Sensei-Tamura said before there was a rather loud and questionable female moan. Tamura slowly turned towards Kurajiri, who had stopped clearing the bar and had gotten out a tablet and was playing one of his cartoon porn games. Tamura sighed as his face hit the table. You damn games. It's not my fault you're not as cultured as I am, Kurajiri said, narrowing his eyes. Just either turn the volume down or wear headphones, Tamura said, sounding annoyed. God's damn smut games, he grumbled. He didn't see the point of such games, where the main focus was on busty and sexy women getting fucked. He honestly didn't see the appeal of such games. Most of the time you were rewarded with your porn for losing, which was pointless because you weren't supposed to be rewarded for losing anyway. And in the games where that wasn't a mechanic, you normally had better things to be doing than fucking someone. Kurogiri glared at Tamura as he put on his wireless earbuds. He was never happy when people criticized his cultured tastes, especially when it was from Tamura. But he was supposed to look after the boy, so look after him he will. Even if he has to put up with a whining, uncultured manchild. He wasn't paid enough for this, or at all for that matter. They all had access to a joint account for any purchases they needed to make, with a monthly spending limit. That was put in place so that Tamura didn't spend it all on video games. Oh well, at least he was distracted with the UA Sports Festival. But, even if this was a good opportunity to gather intelligence, they couldn't really use it. It'll take more than just the two of them to bring down All Might, and Noma took time to make. They were going to need backup if they wanted to defeat All Might. Just need to get Tamura interested in recruiting more professional people. Elsewhere in Japan, within the pristine walls of CI Academy, a girls-only hero school whose alumni included Burnin, Ryukyu, and Mirko, don't ask. Two students wearing the CI Academy uniform were sitting down enjoying a nice cup of tea whilst watching the UA Sports Festival. One of the girls was a rather pale girl with thin, somewhat cat-like bluish lavender eyes, and long straight periwinkle hair. She had a golden monocle over her left eye, with a chain hanging off one side. The other girl was a tall girl with a well-endowed and almost perfect-looking body with a foreign complexion. She had long red hair and brown eyes that seemed to sparkle in the light and was very beautiful. One could almost call her beauty alien due to how perfect she looked. The two girls were focusing their attention on the sports festival, the periwinkle-haired girl writing down notes in a notebook. Gale Force seems to be one of 1A's strongest students so far. The periwinkle-haired girl observed Freezer Burn and King Explosion seem to be strong as well, but they're in the other class. But we won't be able to see who's really the strongest until the third round. Yusako is one to watch out for due to the lack of information on her quirk. As is Galastram and Phantom Thief, since they seem to have similar abilities. But Phantom Thief implies he takes things without asking. So maybe the ability to copy other people's quirks. She mused. Mindjack implies some sort of mental ability, probably mind control. Rule I'm not so sure about. Rule could be short for ruler, so she could either be good at leading people or can do something sized-based. Although I must admit I am stumped on Drusilla. She has a vampire-like quirk, the red-haired girl replied, her voice posh and refined with a British accent. Drusilla is a female vampire from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, so her quirk probably requires blood to use. The periwinkle-haired girl sighed before she shook her head. You and your Western popular culture references, she said, jotting the blood-related quirk down, always making them. Is there anything culturally from Japan that you like? Shirbari, the red-haired girl, replied with a smile. The periwinkle-haired girl just facepalmed as the red-haired girl chuckled. Come now, psycho, you know full well that I like my partners how I like my books. Well read, and bound in leather. The periwinkle-haired girl, psycho, shook her head. Rolls, please, can you go one day without making a single horny comment? No, the red-haired girl, Rolls, replied with a cheeky smile. Psycho groaned before she focused back on the UA Sports Festival, and went back to writing down notes on the UA's first years. For about 10 seconds before she let out a loud yelp and stared daggers at Rolls. What have I said about groping me with your mind during school hours? Rolls chuckled. Might I remind you that today is a no-school day due to the UA Sports Festival? Psycho groaned. I hate that you're right, she groaned, and I hate the fact that I can't kick you out since this is your room as well. Well, you are the one who asked to be paired up with me, Rolls added with a smirk. The two smartest girls in CI, sharing a room together, and a bed. Psycho shocked her head and went back to her note-taking. The UA Sports Festival was a prime opportunity to learn about the quirks of its students in preparation for the UA crash. She had no idea which UA class will be present at the Provisional Hero License exam, so it pays to be prepared and keep tabs on all of their classes. She wasn't really paying attention to the other courses, as they only really matter if someone managed to get to the third round. So, I can't help but notice that you're focusing more on the 1A students. Why is that? Rolls asked, sounding curious. They're the ones who were at the USJ. Psycho replied. They are the ones who will most likely have the most students reach the third round. It would be wise to pay attention to them, just in case we meet them during the provisional hero license exam. Yusako and Galastram especially. And why those two in particular? Rolls asked. Come now, Rolls, you know why. Psycho replied with a knowing smirk. Oh, so you want to see them bound in leather as well? Rolls inquired with a smirk. Psycho turned slowly towards Rolls with an annoyed look on her face, clearly not impressed by her roommate's horny antics. Rolls, one more horny comment out of you, and I'm getting the harness. Rolls just gave her a Cheshire cat grin. Psycho sighed and shook her head, before looking back up at Rolls and smirking. Oh, I am so punishing your arse tonight. Meanwhile, on board the Ark, where less loot activities were going on, Paxton was busy working on some blueprints in one of the ship's many workshops. Not watching the UA Sports Festival? Argonaut asked as he walked into the room. No point, Paxton replied. I've got Ark watching it as well as a spy within their midst. We will have all of the information we need about them soon. And don't worry about the spy, I'd prefer to keep their identity a secret. Don't want to ruin the surprise now, do I? He said with a smile. So, how are you holding up? I know it can't be easy for you to be on board Ark. To be honest, I preferred the Evangelion carrier. Argonaut replied. This boat feels too stuffy. Sorry about that, but this is the only mobile base Avalon has left. Paxton replied. Everything else is, well, gone. The world was rather good at clearing up what was left of Avalon. I do have a new one in the works, but it's going to take a while to make. We don't have the same resources we had before. But, I do have some good news for you. I have a mission for you. Argonaut's face immediately lit up. What's the mission, boss? He asked with a smirk. I need you to go to Clade and meet up with a woman named Barrows, Paxton replied. Barrows? Argonaut shouted, looking shocked. Sir, is that wise? The last time I met her we both swore painful death upon the other. Sorry, but you're the only operative I have who I can deploy to do this, Paxton said. I have others, but they're still in training. Tesla and Twice are good, but they can be better, he said before getting out a folder from his desk. Here's everything you need to know about the mission. I do not know what she wants, but from the message I received, she sounds desperate. But still, be careful, that's Hummerai's territory. Don't worry, sir, I doubt a cult of quirk haters will be a problem for me, Argonaut said. It's Barrows I'm more worried about. She's one of the few people in the world who legitimately is a threat to me. She did almost kill me the last time we met. Don't worry, I'll send you a few robots to back you up. And if things go south, I do have some Mark II Striders on standby to teleport in. Paxton said. Just don't go overboard. We need to keep those things secret for now. Understood, sir, I won't let you down, Argonaut said with a smirk before he left to collect his gear, leaving Paxton alone to get back to his work. The CEO of Avalon had no idea what Barrows wanted. Hell, the writer, the hacker who passed on the message to him, didn't know either. All they knew was that it wasn't a trap. Still, why would the most loyal member of Hummerai's want to contact the writer? Yes, the writer sort of worked for him, being one of the best hackers in Avalon. But, only he knew that. And still, why would she want to meet with someone? Well, hopefully, Argonaut can find that out. Without the Destructo Nuki this time. Back at the UA Stadium, all of the first years had finished the race and were now gathered in front of the stage. Even the management course students who had sat out to do business-related stuff. Well, all but one of them anyway. Why didn't anyone tell me that the management course doesn't take part in the sports festival? Chihiro said, standing among the hero course students as she was, shockingly, the only management course student who finished the obstacle course. Coming in 43rd place. I think you're over-exaggerating things, Chihiro, Achiko said, Izumi standing beside her still muttering like mad. I'm the first management course student in UA history to finish the first event. Chiharu retorted, I am literally the only student from my course, ever, who didn't sit the UA Sports Festival out. Everyone else, my classmates included, all walked off to the sidelines when the race began. I wouldn't worry about it, Hitoshi said calmly. I've seen recordings of past UA sports festivals, and I've only ever seen 42 people move on to the second round. And 16 for the third. So, you're fine. Oh good, Chiharu said with a relieved sigh. She really was not really prepared for this event, so she wasn't prepared to go up against 40 hero course students. Especially with a quirk she's only recently learned how to use properly. The crack of a whip brought everyone's attention back to the stage and towards midnight. She didn't even need to say anything to get everyone's attention now. You all may be wondering who's passing on to the next event. Well, the top 44 students are moving on to round 2. Chiharu's jaw hit the floor. How the hell did I manage to get to round 2? How? Oh, they must have upped the number of students who make it to round 2 this year, Hitoshi remarked calmly. Good. More opportunity for those in general ed to make it onto the hero course. Well, at least you can got to round 2 of the first year UA Sports Festival onto your CV now. Nina said with a smile. That's not helping. Chiharu said, sounding panicked as the names of the 44 students who would be moving on to the second round. The 40 hero course students had their hero names up on the screen, which caused the 4 non-hero names to stand out a lot more. There was her name, because of course there was, she got 43rd place for crying out loud. Mei Hatsum was up there as well, because she managed to keep up with 1A, and got 27th place. The other 2 students who passed were Sadao Atsushi in 41st place, and Yuga Aoyama in 44th place. She didn't know who those 2 were, but they were probably from general education. Those of you whose names or hero names are up on the board please stay, the rest of you please vacate the arena. Midnight said, but to those who didn't make the cut, we've prepared other opportunities for you to shine. She said, licking her lips. Most, if not all of the students shuddered before those who hadn't made it to round 2 left the field. Some were a little faster than others, leaving behind the 44 students who had passed. 40 hero course students, 2 general education students, 1 support student, and 1 management student who was currently sweating bullets. Now then, for the lucky 44 contestants who have managed to make it this far. Well done, Midnight said, but you're not safe yet, we've got one more challenge before the finals. She said, raising her whip as a roulette wheel once again spun. Oh, I'm almost shivering with anticipation for this one, she remarked as the wheel continued to spin, finally stopping at Cavalry Battle. As the name suggests, this will be a normal cavalry battle. President Mike said teams of 4 contestants will battle it out. The only difference from a regular cavalry battle is that quirks can be used. But no forcing your opponents off their horses. Be civil out there please, I do not want another lecture from Recovery Girl. Each contestant will be assigned a points value based on where they placed during the first event, going up in increments of 5. Midnight added, with 5 points for 44th, 10 for 43rd, and so on. With the exception being the first place contestant, whose headband will be worth 1 million points. Izumi stopped muttering at the announcement of how many points her headband was worth. 1 million. She muttered as she felt a large number of eyes focus on her. Everyone was looking at her now, and the massive target that was on her back now. That 1 million was a certified guarantee that you would pass on to the third and final round. Which, whilst it was good for her as she would be going on to the next round, that's if she keeps hold of it. And with everyone else gunning for her headband, she was going to have a bad time keeping hold of it. She's going to be the primary target of everyone else competing. Well, 9th. Looks like the real battle has just begun, the voice of the Vestige she spoke to earlier said. Yeah, it has. That will be it for this part. I hope everyone enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like and comment if you want part 27. If you want to hear more from me, subscribe. I hope to see you all in the next one.